In every democratic society, political office holders are elected into office by ballot casting or voting, either to rule or to represent their people. Over the years, most Nigerian voters seem to have lost confidence in the system, either from previous bad electoral experiences or disappointment in the electoral process. And as a result, such people no longer believe their votes will count. Now there is excitement in the air as the road to the February 2019 elections is being paved with political campaigns and electoral adverts across the country. But there are also questions in the minds of the electorate. How can the Independent National Electoral Commission guarantee effective voter turnout and participation? How can confidence be restored in the hearts of those who no longer trust the system? And what can other electoral institutions and civil society groups do to assure doubting Nigerians that their votes will count this time around? And will their votes count? We're coming right back with answers to these questions and more on Nigeria Today. My name is Kande Daniel. Welcome. I have two discussants to answer the questions we have on the issue of making votes count. Mazi Peter Okorafor is the National Secretary, Coalition of APC Support Groups. He's also the National Secretary, he's also a member 2018 APC National Convention Committee, in addition to being member Presidential Technical Committee on Sensitization. Mazi Okorafor, nice to have you on Nigeria Today.
Pleasure is mine. Good evening.
Welcome. Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo is a former member of the National Assembly and a former Nigerian ambassador to Ethiopia. Among other things, she is also founder Gender and Development Action Guide. Ambassador Toyo, you're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much, Kande. Thank you.
Now, we are dealing with a matter that has the potential to either make a nation great or even to the contrary, to dwarf her. So, making votes count. Ambassador Toyo, what do you make of this phrase, or should I say this phenomenon?
I think the fact that we're even talking about it means that there is a challenge with it. And the very fact that we in this country over the years have talked about something called does the vote count is indicative of a state of affairs that has over time been associated with the politics of our elections. It's not peculiar to now. It's been something that the country has been faced with. And largely that is because we do have what we call an election monitoring body or management body, which is INEC. But all the responsibilities for the management of an election does not lie in INEC alone. There are the security agencies that come into play. There are other enablers that make the work. INEC doesn't, in fact, have all the staff that goes out into the field to do the work on the day of the election. There are what we call ad hoc staff, and oftentimes very many factors influence who becomes an ad hoc staff in an election. So these are the countervailing circumstances that over time have been exploited in one way or the other and used to abuse the process.
So Mazi Okorafor, do you agree with her that this shouldn't even arise at all? Because votes counting is the very reason why we hold elections.
Yeah, in addition to what she said, rightly, by her position, is that making your vote count to a great extent depends on the electorate itself.
So it's an important phenomenon.
We always jettison that responsibility to INEC security and what have you. You casted vote, you run an election, you have an agent, you have INEC observers. When these votes are casted, nobody will rig you except you leave your duty post. The greater responsibility of ensuring that your vote counts is for you, whose civic responsibility it is to protect the vote you cast.
All right, in a few minutes, we're going to be talking about who does what to make votes count. But for now, Mazi Okorafo, can you help us articulate some of the possible reasons why we have come to the point that some Nigerians believe that their votes do not count?
Well, historically, it's been in existence. Between 1956 and 1959, we had electoral violence. At the onset of our democratic process in this country, in the First Republic, we lost about 154 souls in that election. And he went on, he graduated. Between the year 1999 and 2007, about 15,000 souls died. Between the year 2008 and 2011, about 800 people were killed. Recently, in 2015 election, I know about 58 people died. So it's historical. But the bottom line is, why is it so? For me, I think that the greed of men, the selfishness, greed for power to acquire illegal wealth, sponsors abuse of electoral processes. If we can reorientate our conscience, you will not have any reason to make the election process a do or die affair. It's a do or die affair because you have an ulterior motive that is hinged on corruption. If your mindset in going to the public service is for the governance, good governance of your people, representative democracy, you won't fight over it because it's sacrificial. But when it fails to be sacrificial, is selfishness or self-centeredness, then you cut corners.
Right. Ambassador, can you share with us what impacts you would think that this negative attitude about votes counting has had on the Nigerian political system, as well as the individual voter or potential voter?
I think this is a debate about whether the chicken comes before the egg or the egg comes before the chicken. You know, the point being that if a system is bad, it produces bad results. If a system works, it produces better results. Fundamentally, as a country, we are yet to work our systems to a level that they work. So we must come to the fact and realization that there is something they say about us, oftentimes, which we parry away. But the truth of that is that there is a lot of things to suggest that that is true. People say we're a failed state. Some say that we are a state in the process of being failed, you know. But what the point I'm trying to make there is that when you have a state that is fundamentally weak in its capacity to manage its systems and its institutions, it produces results that contradict the very purpose for which those institutions exist. And the point, therefore, that flows from that is that people have looked at their capacity of many of our institutions in Nigeria to protect even the things or the mandates they are given. And they turn around and say to themselves, when did this business of protecting your mandate started? It started because we saw the institutions were failing to deliver on the very basic things that they were supposed to do. INEC is supposed to count, and it didn't count.
Yeah,
so
I was about to ask you, in terms of institutional interventions, when we set up the independent, keyword independent National Electoral Commission, it has not solved the problem, has it? And why not, if not?
Well, that's the point I was trying to make. It's because if you think about the country, the culture of impunity, the culture of setting aside rules, the failure of the rules of law, there is an electoral act that almost every assembly of the National Assembly makes sure there's one amendment on the other to improve. Now we are talking of electronic voting. Now we are talking of go and get your PVC. We're talking of all manner of things. You then come to the point of the election itself, some so-called technical or so-called logistical everything to suggest that the institution itself is unable to deliver on its own very mandate happens in the field. But those are even matters that we understand. The new face of the challenge is that because democracy is about contestation, and we are an evolving democracy, we are just emerging. We're not yet there. We don't have the ethical values that go with a decent democracy. The contestation is so stiff. And when you have a stiff contestation, people resort to just anything, including undermining that very system that is supposed to produce an election that counts. I am totally against anybody asking anybody to go and protect his mandate. The system has to deliver on the mandate. How many people can protect their vote? If all of us are trying to fight over, I put my own, you put your own, no, what I put was wrong, everybody has his own narrative on what that vote they cast is. So the institution has to be in a place, and like you say, it's an independent institution. It has to be in a place to mediate on our differential interest in such a way that our interest does not undermine the good and the general setting in which we find ourselves. So basically, it's a failure of institutions. It's a failure of systems. Look at where we are today. Today we are a few days to an election, and we do not quite understand where we are in terms of that process. Is it that the process itself is being already undermined by the things happening, or are we expected to see a different outcome at the end of the day? So the contestations and the lack of a culture of doing things in a particular way that enhances the democratic systems and cultures, it's not limited to one party or the other. It's a Nigerian thing. It's a Nigerian way of doing things. We take things to a level that we also undermine even the things that we try to make.
I wish you could put the Nigerian in quotes. Mazi Okorafo,
Yes.
What would you say to her comments about the failure of institutions? Do you think this is a developmental phenomenon? Is it an evolving process? Is it something we're on the way to overcoming, or we need to do something drastic to cut it short?
Well, at this juncture, I have a little bit disparity from her view, because the present administration have been doing so well to ensure that these institutions function effectively, to guarantee that our vote counts. Under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, we have seen him supervise a few governorship elections in some states, and every Nigerian watched it, and INEC was given a pass mark as against what it used to be. You saw the Bayelsa state election that held a few years back, where APC candidate lost a PDP candidate in the present governor. You saw what happened in Edo. They changed themselves close by to close by. Also, you saw Ondo state election and Ekiti. What's dramatic is the Anambra election, which is normally used to rigging, thuggery, ballot snatching. But under the present administration, they ran free and fair election there, and everybody saw it. And APC lost to ABGA. So for me, under this present administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, the institutions are being geared up to work, and they're working. And I believe in a more larger general election that they will improve on what they've done.
Right, there's lights at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Just before we go on break, I still on you, Mazi Okorafo. She was saying that she does not belong to the school of thinking that says a Nigerian should protect his or her vote. What do you think the Nigerian voter should do in terms of vote protection?
Well, practically speaking, from my field experience in observing elections, you see, if you leave it to the institutions, then you are giving them right to steal your vote.
So what should we do?
You watch your vote.
Mercy, you have just contradicted yourself.
No.
You're doing greatly the institution.
No, I'm talking about the past. We're talking about the past.
No,
We are talking about the past.
Yeah, we can still talk about even where there is success or failure.
It's about the past we are talking about, because I believe
of the different
discourse is not on the present administration, it's on the past activities. Because if we subject the present administration and INEC's performance, I think everybody has given them pass marks so far. But our subject is antecedents, so I believe we are discussing antecedents.
I think I didn't even discuss antecedents. But if we go to antecedents,
from 1956, I did talk about antecedents. You understand? So
if we go to antecedents, the Jega-led INEC did a great job. If we go to antecedents, and I think the current INEC, is building on that trajectory. We have many great people in the INEC system. I started by saying that INEC on its own as an electoral management body is not the only player in the field. Today we know, and we have always known by the nature of our very laws that set up our electoral management body, that it's not INEC alone. You have ad hoc staff, you have the, the security operatives, and all other people, observers, all other players in the field. INEC does not have authority over all of these people. Remember what happened in Edo when they said, look, we can't hold the election on a particular day because the security operatives said we cannot hold the elections. But what I'm more importantly saying is that the current situation in which we're seeing ourselves in Ekiti, for example, is such that it is not just about INEC per se. It is about the nature of the contestation itself. And the question is, why is the nature of the contestation so deeply problematic?
Okay, we'll come back to all of this in a moment. I think we need the break right now. You're watching Nigeria Today, and we're discussing the crucial matter of the need to make votes count in elections. We'll take a break from the studio now to hear from Nigerians on the streets.
The federal government should make sure we have enough security that will guide our votes. And even we, the voters, after voting, we are not there to fight or to cause any violence. We have to be there so that we'll make sure they count our votes. We'll know how many they vote for APC, how many they vote for PDP or Afghani party, so that when we hear the final result, we know that it's what we heard from the initial place.
Not to be violent in the process. You stay to look forward, saying that your vote counts. And when you do all these things, we know that we will head to a better place in the time to come.
We will try to be there and make sure they count it for our present. Then we should avoid any trouble. We should avoid to trouble somebody.
Ensure that we support INEC in ensuring that the card reader technology is applied. And lastly, but not the least, is to ensure that after we cast our vote, we stay behind peacefully until when the result is announced, so that we all have the record.
After you've voted, you can hang around and guide your vote and others, because some hoodlums come, not minding securities, and they intend to grab the ballot boxes. They've been doing it. So I pray God helps our country come 2019.
Welcome back. Mazi Peter Okorafor and Ambassador Nkoyotoyo are still here. Well, the good thing is Nigerians do have opinions about issues any day. You just watched. I'm curious to know where you would place our respondents. Are you placing them in the box of the doubters or in the box of the believers in the political system? Mazi Okorafor, let's hear you.
yes, I think I will call them optimists, because the APC-led government have provided enabling environment to make Nigerians believe that 2019 election is going to be credible. They said the taste of the pudding is in the eating. We may have done little elections, but those elections are serious landmark that could give us a picture of what to expect in 2009 general election, 19 rather. And of course, Nigerians witnessed our convention, the APC National Convention. It was strictly and purely democratic. The president himself got up and voted. Unlike in the past, where they would just reel out names and say, everybody returned unopposed. Our president went and casted his vote at the convention for his candidates. And then he supervised governorship elections across this country, about 4 states now. And they went without interference from the state, and they did their job under his purview. So I think there is hope But even though while we have hope, we know that some opposition people and those greedy, ambitious politicians out there masquerading in various political party form, they want to try their gimmicks like they always do. But this system will not allow that, because we have a watchdog who is committed to transparency, integrity, and probity.
You know, somehow I'm glad that we all agree that it is important that votes should count, especially as 2019 approaches. And despite the argument we had before the break, there is a point of agreement that the votes should count, and people should do what they can to protect the votes.
Certainly.
But where they cannot do anything, institutions should come in. So, Ambassador Nkoya, I want to hear your opinion. You are strong as a member of the civil society. Can you share with us your thoughts on some of the things civil society has been doing and should be doing to move us even further on the issue of making votes count?
I think even the whole debate on whether the vote counts at all and how you can make it count has been a civil society campaign. It has come from the civil society. All this question about stand there, protect your mandate, even the mandate question all came out of civil society. But I also do know that in actual fact that in practice, making the electorate accountable for that vote is actually putting an unnecessary onus on them. Because like the last speaker said, if you listen to them, that hoodlums come, this happens, that happens, and undermines the process. It sometimes gets violent and dirty. So why would you, as INEC, sit down aside and allow me to protect my own vote to the point that I'm fighting and sometimes being killed in order to protect that vote? So you're putting an unnecessary onus on the voter, as it were. But however, having said all of that, I think there is a role in civil society to continue to educate, particularly in this era of the use of electronic voting. Let us hope and believe that some of the setbacks we have seen with the use of those technologies will be addressed. Let us hope that even that technology itself would not be undermined by that same institutional thing that we are dealing with. And let us hope that in terms of the actual rolling out in the field, INEC may come out and say this is the way we are rolling it out, but in terms of the actual rolling out in the field, we don't meet with a lot of crisis. And I think that's what the civil society will educate on. These are the possible scenarios. These are the possible situations in which you find yourself. The whole question of an election observer mission is also to be able to give an alternative opinion, but it's just an opinion. It has never counted in the law. In the court of law, nobody says because it is persuasive, but it doesn't count in terms of the evidence that is used to determine whether the case is won or lost in a particular form or the other. So I would say that civil society has its limitations to the point that it can educate, it can raise the ante, it can bring attention to this problem and this issue, but ultimately it lies in INEC and the security operatives to give us a level playing ground, free of violence, free of contestation, so that when I vote, I am not afraid that sitting by that polling unit to wait for my vote to be counted, somebody will come with a gun and undermine my own very security.
Right. Time is fast running out. Yeah. So there's still a lot to talk about. I'd like to very quickly hear Mazio Korafor's comments on what, like we accepted, earlier on, INEC exists basically, simply put, for the purpose of making votes count. So now that we're talking about this, what do you think the Commission can do differently this time around to make the system better?
I think that they have already started what they should do to make the system better. They put it in place already. It's in process. And to me, those few elections were litmus tests. And they got quite impressive pass mark. I could credit them over 65%, going by what happened in those elections.
All right. Going forward, do you think modern technology has any way? She made a reference to electronic voting. Do you think we can tap into modern technology going forward to support the efforts of government to restore credibility to our electoral process?
Yes, I remember in 2000 2007 election, the World Bank, European Union, I think they approved about $50 million for polling unit surveillance, digital surveillance cameras, which was presented to INEC. Then I happened to be part of that process. But somewhere along the line, because of power problems that will power the various units in the various polling units, that project never took off. And I know, if you know what the present administration is doing, so much is being done to improve the power sector. And until we improve the power sector, certain level of technological innovation cannot be introduced now. For instance, like the one I'm talking about, the digital surveillance cameras at polling units. It captures the activities directly at the polling unit and returns them at the collating center where they're centrally monitored. Well, if you talk about the other electronic voting system, well, I think the past elections we did fine. Maybe government will have to finance INEC enough to improve on that.
Right. You know, in closing down, there's something that has developed of recent in Nigeria. Just briefly, maybe 10 seconds each. I want to hear what we think about the recent coming alive of young people in Nigerian politics, the interest they have shown of recent. In what way is this playing out in your mind, positively or negatively, as we approach elections?
You mean not too young to run?
Yeah, the interest of young people in elections.
Oh, well, we saw that very strongly in 2015, that they had used the social media. And just to add to the point you made earlier on, I think beyond whether we have access to power or not power, even our mobile phones can do quite a lot in terms of the technology it is used. But we need to cue that into a genuine process of wanting to know what actually happened in the field. The first question we need to ask ourselves is that, yes, INEC, your job is to see that this thing works and the votes count, but you must be genuinely interested in doing that. And just to say that the young people are great and they would do as well as they can do when there's an environment that enables. But with what we are seeing in Ekiti State today, that is not. It's going to have huge implications for what happens on Saturday. Whether the vote will count on Saturday or not, the harassment of the Ekiti government today is definitely an indication of a very different standard. And this has nothing to do with INEC. This is the security undermining INEC even before the election. Okay, I'm sure we'll get more reports on that subsequently, and we have actually run out of time. That's about all we can do in our half-hour slot. But your contributions have been very useful and well appreciated. Mazi Peter Okorafor, National Secretary Coalition of APC Support Groups, thank you for your time.
Pleasure is mine. My
dear sister, Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo, we appreciate your time too.
Thank you.
And that's Nigeria Today for this Wednesday. The program comes to you live every weekday, same time. Thank you for watching. My name is Kande Daniel. Bye-bye.